Uh, can I invite Malvika Rai, President FLO, to give the welcome address for this meeting today?
Good morning, friends. Before I officially start the program, there's certain housekeeping points which I would like to bring forth. One is put your phones on silent. Just want to inform you that our next program is on September 18th, which is a talk followed by a gallery tour of the National Gallery of Arts. It's only for 30 people, so when we open up for registrations, please do register. And it'll be taken on first come, first served basis. We are taking a delegation of 30 members to Uzbekistan on 30th August for 8 days. This year, FLO celebrates 30 years, and we are having the interstate in Delhi for the first time on 19th and 20th, and one day offsite to Agra. This interstate whose theme is going to be Delhi 2013, Together We Can, is going to be full of networking with other members pan-India, motivational and inspirational talks, offsites and socials. The 19th night social will be Sufi music, fashion show and Awadhi dinner at Mira and Muzaffar's house, and registrations will start next week. On 20th December, we will felicitate 30 FLO members pan-India. We have already set out a mailer, which you all must have received, and I would encourage to nominate yourself in any one of the categories. We should receive it by 20th of August, and the jury will consist of 3 past presidents. In his address during the 29th FLO annual session, Shri Narendra Modi ji highlighted the role of women entrepreneurs in the economic development of our country. He suggested that FLO, being a pan-India body of women entrepreneurs, could play an important role in documenting and highlighting the stories of women entrepreneurs. I would encourage members to collect these stories and email us so that we can collect 250 stories pan-India and award 12 of them we will select during the annual general meeting, which is being held on April 17th, 2014. So I would encourage you, if you can collect, and these stories should be from on the grassroots levels. Okay, now I officially begin my program. Dr. Ashok Seth, Dr. Bedi is just yet to come. He's caught up in an emergency. Dr. Tripat Chaudhary, Mrs. Daljit Kaur, members on the dais, friends, a very good morning to all of you. It is my pleasure to welcome you to the interactive session on Myths and Reality on Healthy Lifestyle for Women, a discussion on recognizing potential causes, preventive care, and myths coincided with heart diseases, gynecological, and orthopedic issues. Leading a healthy life is one of the most pertinent topics of discussion in our lives today. We definitely understand that a healthy lifestyle is of utmost importance in the prevention of a disease, but it is something that often takes a backseat in most of our lives due to various reasons. I won't go into the reasons. Moreover, with all the information out there about health, fitness, and prevention of diseases, how is one supposed to know what facts are true and which facts are myths? We are privileged to have a panel of esteemed doctors from Fortis Heart Care amidst us. A very warm welcome to Dr. Ashok Seth, Dr. Gurinder Bedi, Dr. Tripat Chaudhary, and Mrs. Daljit Kaur. Dr. Ashok Seth, he is the chairman, Fortis Escorts Heart Institute, and chairman, Cardiology Council, Fortis Group of Hospitals, and he's contributed extensively to the growth, development, and scientific progress of cardiology, especially interventional cardiology in India and across the world. Over the past 20 years, he has pioneered numerous angioplasty techniques for India and Asia-Pacific region. His expertise, skills, and his pioneering efforts in teaching and training in angioplasty have won him respect and all across the world. He was awarded the Padma Shri in 2003. He has also received recognition in the Limca Book of Records. Dr. Bedi is not here, but I will introduce him. He'll just join us in the middle. He's the orthopedics at the Fortis Hospital, Dr. Bedi has recently started practicing as a consultant orthopedic surgeon in New Delhi after returning from the UK, where he had been practicing for the last 11 years. He has extensive experience in all facets of orthopedics, such as spinal, hand, foot, and ankle surgery. And his specialization are joint replacement in hip, knees, and shoulder. Dr. Tripat Chaudhary is a senior consultant in gynecology and obstetrics, Fortis Femme Hospital. Dr. Chaudhary completed her MBBS from Maula Azad Medical College, following which she did her MD, obstetrics and gynecology, also from Maulana Azad College. Subsequently, she held faculty positions at Holy Family Hospital, Dead and Bata Hospital, Delhi. She has over 25 years of experience. Mrs. Daljit Kaur is the senior most dietitian in Fortis, Escorts Hospital. She joined the hospital in the year 1991 and has an enriched experience of 21 years. She is a postgraduate in diabetics and public health and nutrition. She is a live and active member of the Delhi Diabetics Association and Indian Diabetics Association. Her expertise articles are coming in clinical nutrition, and her areas are renal, cardiac, surgical, pediatric, and diabetic. Our members are looking forward to hearing your views and perspectives of various facets of living healthy lifestyle. Dr. Seth, Dr. Bedi, Dr. Chaudhary, Mrs. Kaur, thank you for being with us. We look forward to an enriching and inspiring session with you. I would also like to take the opportunity to thank Jayanti Dalmia, governing body member and day chair of the program, and also hosting the lunch for us. A healthy lunch. We tried to make it a healthy lunch. Thank you very much.
I think we could throw it open to the panel straight away. For Dr. Seth would say a few words first. Would you like to speak from here or from the dais?
I think I'll have to move some slides, so maybe.
Okay.
Good morning, lovely young ladies. Many of you may think that I'm too flamboyantly dressed. All red and you know, why won't I be? I mean, after all, when you have, it's rarely do you get a chance to start the day amongst a group, such a large group of elegant girls, I would say. In fact, I was wondering, I was sitting there, I said, why do all these people need Gurinder Bedi? Maybe he doesn't need to come. You're the people who don't need Gurinder Bedi. Certainly, me and Tripat Chaudhary could actually just talk about all that we need to do. So forget Gurinder Bedi. Don't even talk about that, okay? No, one of the reasons, of course, I'm wearing this red is clearly that I'm amongst you all, and I want to be flamboyant. But the other, do you know why else I'm wearing red? Heart. Go red for women. That is actually the slogan for prevention of heart disease in women. And if I didn't come in wearing red, that would be truly wrong. So that's why I'm here, all red. I just took out my red trousers as well, and I thought that perhaps would not go very well with this group. So the red trousers got shelved for a black one, but at least I'm here. Now I need to talk to you, and I want to make this truly informal, clearly very informal, because I don't think, while we can discuss heart disease and it's a disabling disease and it's a killer, but perhaps the best way to prevent is to understand it, discuss it, and perhaps not to be totally overpowered by it. So let's do it in a happier mood. And out here, I'm going to take the next few minutes to actually tell you some facts about heart disease in women. And certainly by the time I finish my little talk, at least you'd become in some way cardiologists enough to even go back and give a lecture to your spouses. Now imagine, look what you have in your hand, the cards you have in your hand. Imagine that you're going home and then you say, sit down now, let me tell you how to prevent heart disease. Let me tell you what you got to do. And from tomorrow, you're not going to eat anything, and I'm not going to cook anything for you either. And like the biggest, easiest way out for ladies is to say, this, whatever is being eaten in this house is totally rubbish. From tomorrow you eat nothing, you're just going to have brown bread, nothing else, and you're just going to have dal and eat this and salad, and you're going to be the most healthiest family ever. But that's the easiest way to actually conduct the household, isn't it? So the husband comes back at night totally tired, looking for a big meal, and all he's got is a few lettuce, a few leaves, and a portion of dal, and he goes off to sleep half hungry, and you say, you're looking good, and you're looking real healthy next morning. But that's the way life is all about. So let me just talk about women and heart disease. Now, women and heart disease, totally, you'd be surprised that heart disease is actually the biggest killer in women. It's bigger than men when you talk about causes of death. And little had you thought of that, because most women go for a checkup, and most women go for a checkup believing that they are out for other tests, and they're having the mammograms and having pap smears and having all those, and yet the heart disease seems to be the lowest in the category of those checkups. In fact, some of the checkups don't include tests for heart disease, and yet it's the biggest killer. So in terms of statistics, 1 in 3, 30% women are dying from heart disease. 1 in 20, 1 in 24, 1 in 30 perhaps die from a breast cancer. So the vastness of disease, the difference in causes of death is so vast that all of us have to be aware that women are perhaps, and the other problem is that it's not just the incidence we're talking about. Once heart disease affects women, the deaths from heart disease are higher in women, the symptoms are different, and certainly once a heart attack occurs, the course of the disease process is far more vicious in women than men. So we're actually looking at practically in some way a different disease process compared to men, and that's also very important to understand. Now, when we analyze over the last 30 years, where the incidence of heart disease in the West, say deaths from heart disease, deaths from heart attacks, started decreasing in the West around 30 years ago, mainly due to good preventive measures coming in, CCUs, high level of coronary cares, new therapies, and deaths from heart disease are falling in the West. But interestingly, in women, the deaths from heart disease are falling much slower than men, even in the West. But in India, it's the other way around. Deaths from heart disease are rising in the last 30 years, while in the West they've been falling. We are rising. Our heart disease incidence has grown 300% over the last 40 years. And in women, it's grown 200%. And the deaths of heart disease, deaths from heart disease in women are rising more precipitously than in men. So there are a number of factors that we all have to absorb in this. Let's not make this a very serious lecture, but I think what we got to understand is factors. One is the fact, why is disease process increasing in women compared to men? Why is it more vicious in women compared to men? And what else can we do about it? And that's why we're all here. So to understand it all, we've seen a change in lifestyle in everybody. And that's what's responsible for increase of heart disease in everybody in Asia Pacific, and specifically in India. There's a lifestyle change altogether over the last 30 years. There is increase in smoking, less activity, stress, more eating out, different food habits, less of exercise, diabetes and hypertension haven't been controlled so well, so all the risk factors are up. But one of the interesting aspects about women, and this is the hypothesis, is that women have actually faced far greater stress in the last 20 years than men have. And that's because of what we call dual stress. There are far greater ladies who are entrepreneurial or working than it was 25 years ago. They actually, therefore, different to the West, whereby there's sharing of responsibilities and work, both at work as well as at home. Unfortunately, the society hasn't evolved into sharing of workload. So the ladies are supposed to actually work out there, do the 9 to 5, have the stresses of the glass ceiling as well as the competition which now exists, and then have to come back home and still take the responsibilities of the household, the education of the children, the teaching of the children, the balances of life which exist between them and the household, perhaps their in-laws, and all the other responsibilities and obligations which have existed forever in the Indian society. And those two have only gradually changed, and perhaps we're going to see those change in 25 years where stresses of women may equate that of men, but at the moment women actually face far greater stress, especially with dual stress, and that's accounted. And the third aspect which I want you all understand is that women in India have always put themselves, so that's perhaps happens in the United States as well, that women actually believe that they put themselves the furthest down in the ladder in the family. So if a disease process occurs, it's always more important towards the children, towards the husband. But women have actually tried to put themselves last in saying, okay, it's time for me to get a checkup, or this pain could have been a heart pain. It's usually, oh, this could be acidity, let me pass it off, or this could be just, perhaps this will just go away, it's a muscular pain. But for the husband, if a pain occurs, it's immediately top of the mind, this is heart pain, you got to have a checkup, let's go today, let's have this done. And that, of course, you can actually understand this because this is how life revolves in India, and we are in a process of evolution of this society towards understanding that women actually perhaps need greater attention, perhaps need to be the foremost person in the family to stay well, because the women are actually the backbone of the family. And that's where the society has to change in understanding that women also need to change in understanding that they are actually more important than any member of the family, because that's how the family leads and grows. They're the leaders. Coming to these are not philosophies, these are rather scientific facts. I may philosophize them, but they are scientific facts, so please go back and institute them. Yeah, everybody knows who's the boss at home. Now, let's go to understanding the heart. And I think it's very important to understand what this heart is all about. This is a muscular pump. It actually is right here. And it's very interesting. People call it the kaleja. And that's not kaleja. Kaleja mein dard ho raha hai. I mean, I don't think that's kaleja at all. But that's theek hai, or jigar. I mean, I don't know where these terms come from. Actually, this is dil, and dil is right here. And this is a muscular pump. So it's actually around this big, a muscular pump. Now, it has these 3 arteries running on the surface of the heart. These 3 arteries supply blood to this heart muscle, because the muscle pump needs blood. And these 3 arteries go to the right side, front of the heart, back of the heart, and they just like, go to branches and branches and keep supplying the blood to this heart muscle. There are a number of branches which haven't been shown here. Now, it's the blockage in these arteries. When it leads, that's what's all this coronary artery disease is all about. The blockages in these arteries of the heart. So that if a block occurs, and that's the same heart. Now, before I take you any further to understand the heart, and you've understood the valves also. There are valves in the heart. Those were the arteries of the heart responsible for the heart attacks. Any blockage in them causes the chest pain. Any blockage in them causes heart attack. And this is, when we cut open the heart and we're showing you a cross section, inside the heart there are 4 chambers. This is the right side of the heart, the right atrium, which is where the blood comes. It goes to the ventricle, the right side of the heart, and there's a valve in it to prevent the blood from going back, because as the contraction occurs, you have to have valves to prevent the blood from going back. That's simple physiology. And then from here, the right ventricle, the blood goes into the lungs, gets oxygenated. This is actually the right side of the heart receives the unoxygenated blood from the rest of the body, pumps it into the lungs. From the lungs, it comes to the left side of the heart, to the left ventricle, which is the most forceful pump of the heart, and then gets ejected to the rest of the body. Now, at each step, there are valves to prevent the blood from flowing back and only moving forwards, and that's why there are 4 valves in the heart. And when we talk about valve surgery, we're talking about these valves which exist inside the chambers of the heart to prevent the blood going backwards and only moving in one direction, which is forwards. As we go to this, Now we get back to the arteries of the heart. And cholesterol starts depositing in the arteries of the heart, and that's what coronary artery disease is all about. So when cholesterol deposits start blocking off the arteries, then there's a narrowing of the arteries of the heart, there's a decrease in blood flow to the heart. At rest, the heart's still going to get blood flow. It's almost like the pipes in our house, and there's something getting deposition. And if only one person is having a bath, they'll still get a water supply enough to have a bath. But if suddenly the whole household starts having baths, suddenly there'll be decrease of water supply. And everybody in every bathroom would be screaming, saying, Mera to pani band ho gaya, koi dhoondho, kahan ho gaya, kya ho gaya? That's what happens to the heart. So when we exercise and there's not enough blood coming through to the heart muscle, through that blocked artery, that's when the symptoms of angina start. The first symptom of a heart disease is discomfort in the chest on walking, on brisk exercise. And when the person slows down, the discomfort goes away, and that's good. So when one is faced with all these chest pains, and all of us have chest pains, some acidity, some muscular pain, etc., if that pain is not getting worse on exercise, if that pain is not getting worse on your treadmill, if your pain is not getting worse when you're climbing 3 flights of stairs, or it's not coming at that time, then it's unlikely to be heart disease. That's the first thing which happens. Now, taking you through this, now imagine this is a cross-section of the artery. And this is the cholesterol getting deposited in the artery, narrowing the lumen of the artery, narrowing. Now, this cholesterol doesn't deposit on the surface of the walls, by the way. So, I've often been asked this, oh, is that deposit, what if it just gets broken and it goes somewhere and all that sort of thing? Actually, it deposits inside the wall of the artery. And because it's depositing inside the wall of the artery, it's just pushing the inner lining inwards, decreasing the lumen of the artery. And when it gets worse and worse, then the lumen is decreased to a pinpoint we call a 90% blockage. That's when symptoms really get worse. The person can't even walk 50 yards, can't even walk 20 yards. And you've heard these stories about your friends, relatives, somebody or the other who got so bad that he started getting chest discomfort on minimal exertion. And if suddenly a clot was to get stuck on this little narrowing, and that happens, that the blood clots up, suddenly there is a cessation of blood. There is no blood going to the heart at that time, and then the symptom of heart attack occurs. And that's what this all demonstrates, that suddenly blood clots up and the symptom of a heart attack occurs. So these are the stages of development of heart disease, coronary artery disease, going from a normal artery to cholesterol deposits which decrease the lumen. And then when sudden cessation of blood flow happens, a heart attack starts because there is no blood flow going to the heart. And that becomes an emergency. The squeezing chest discomfort, which is extremely tight, associated with sweating, a sense of ghabrahat, nausea, vomiting, in fact, a sense of doom, which a person has never experienced before. It's almost like a vice across the chest. Now that is an emergency because the cessation of blood flow means that the heart muscle is now dying. There is no supply. It's completely gone now. It takes 12 hours for the heart muscle in that area to die, to be totally destroyed, which means that, as you saw, there were only 3 arteries of the heart, and if one major artery is going, it means 33% of the heart is suddenly going to actually be destroyed, which means that the life is then going to function on remaining 2 arteries, or perhaps only 60% of the heart muscle, which means that the efficiency of the heart is going to go down, which means that the longevity of life is going to go away, which means that the person may not survive now for the remaining 40 years, could only survive for the remaining 20 years. So that is the catastrophic event of a heart attack and why it matters. And you may have heard that our effort is, and it takes 12 hours for the heart muscle to die, so then what is it? Is that time is muscle. Every minute going by means more and more muscle being destroyed, your heart being destroyed, perhaps your longevity of life being destroyed. And that's why we always say, must get to the hospital ASAP, whichever means possible. And then you've heard all this situation where somebody, friend, relative, etc., when he's had a heart attack, taken to the hospital, the doctor says, now what you need is an angiogram straight away. And many people have said, oh, ये तो पैसे बना रहा है बड़ा. इसने कह दिया, हाँ, ये तो अभी कल तक तो ठीक थे, आज तो सवेरे चेस्ट पेन हुआ है, थोड़ी तो स्वेटिंग हुई है, और ये इसने तो कहा है कि ECG की कह दिया, ये ले चलो. आजकल तो डॉक्टर बड़े पैसे बनाने में लगे हैं, जी हम तो नहीं कराते, हम तो अभी डॉक्टर से पूछेंगे, हम तो अभी हमें भाई आ रहा है, हमारा तो चाचा ने कहा था कि उनको तो ऐसे किया था तो ठीक नहीं हुए थे. All sorts of things keep happening. in that time when the time is getting wasted and the doctor is frantic saying, yeah, come on, make up this mind, one of the aspects, of course, is it costs money, and therefore people are not easy. Suddenly they were fine just an hour ago, and now they got to have all this happening suddenly. People are getting more educated, but it's certainly time to talk about it, because that's education, and you'll pass on these education to more other people. But what we're trying to do at that time is take him straight to the cath lab, open his artery up as fast as possible so that the blood flow restores, put in a stent, and actually save his heart, because that is going to save his outcome. He's actually going to live longer, and it's been shown that many people who suffer a heart attack from which they're not salvaged will destroy their hearts to such an extent that perhaps their survival actually over even the next 5 years gets impacted tremendously. Heart failure, the biggest cause of failing hearts all around us is heart attacks. So actually it is catastrophic. So that's why the emphasis on what to do. Now let's understand what are the risk factors. Now the risk factors are, of course, we realize all these. Now if I was to ask everybody out here, by show of hands, I know that if I was to spell out 7 risk factors and say, how many of you know 5 risk factors, everybody would raise their hands. How many of you say no 7 risk factors, 50% would raise their hands. Because you all know it. The problem with our country is that we are always counteractive, not proactive. हमें तो होना ही नहीं था. I mean, it's almost like जी चोरी तो दूसरे के घर में होती है, हमारे घर थोड़ी होती है चोरी. हमने ये सब क्यों करना है? All sorts of things like your seat belt तो दूसरे accidents थोड़े होते हैं. We actually only institute, almost like a government actually. In fact, very much like a government. It institutes everything counteractively, never proactively. There are no proactive situations in life. We as a society always believe that heart disease is going to strike someone else and not us. And then, unfortunately, and I've done a study on this, by the way. I did a study on morning walkers, interestingly. I did a study on morning walkers, having over the years realized that more and more people, बड़े लोग सवेरे घूम रहे हैं. It's great, India is getting a healthier nation. जितना जाओ, कहीं लोधी गार्डन, इधर उधर, सब कोई लोग सवेरे सवेरे बड़ी exercise कर रहे हैं. I see that in the West. So I said, let's do a study of what these people are doing. And actually the study which was then published was related to the fact that out of the morning walkers, and a survey of 1,000 morning walkers showed that firstly 75% of them were beyond the age of 50, only 25% were less than 50, akin to the West where the youngsters all going jogging in the park, etc. That's proactive. And out of the 50 who were actually walking, 80% of them had actually got a disease process for which they'd been advised to walk. So actually that was a part of their therapy. They were just looking for, जी हमें walking कब छोड़नी है, अब तो हमारा 1 साल हो गया walking करते करते. ठीक है, तो ये डॉक्टर ने कहा था कि अब walking कीजिए, तो अब ये कब हम stop कर सकते हैं walking. It's almost like a part of a prescription कि ये greasy खाना कब तक ना खाएं. And then the rest of the family is having all that fried food, and this guy looking at it, and the other saying, जी डॉक्टर ने आपको मना किया, आप तो नहीं खा सकते, ये सब तो आपके लिए नहीं है, ये आपके लिए हमने बनाया है. And the poor guy has got a single roti, dry roti, chopping away while everybody is having great food. And then this guy is just waiting for the day. Just hoping, and I'd have to tell the rest of his family, please, yeah, you got to be eating the same stuff. You just can't actually think that you're having a good time in life. But that's the philosophy and psychology out of the nation. So here it is: stress, hypertension, smoking. This is family history, age, and sex. The family history is very important. In fact, quite often I see ladies at the age of 30 without any risk factors, 33, 35, and I'm shocked myself when they present with coronary artery disease. And the single factor is a very strong family history of coronary artery disease. So must understand that there's a strong family history of coronary artery disease, you could actually, that becomes a very important risk factor in our minds. And those are the people who need to take precautions very early on. Males, as we've discussed, are more prone to have coronary artery disease. But when we talked about deaths from heart disease, women are dying from heart disease much more often. But males are getting heart disease. So you can imagine if males are having more heart disease, but the women are dying, having more deaths, it's a paradox. That means women are actually being affected pretty badly with heart disease. There's a age, of course, we know it's progressive. It's an aging process. So we're not worried about somebody with a age of 75 presents with blockages, and he says, "ये मुझे क्यों हुआ?" तो मैंने बोला तो आपके बाल भी सफ़ेद हो गए, वो क्यों है यार? आपकी आर्थराइटिस हो गई, वो क्यों? तो ब्लॉकेज तो आनी थी